Welcome to Future Proof Business. Smart strategies, real insights, and tools to lead and scale in a fast-changing world. Let's future-proof your success.
Welcome to the Future Proof Business Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. Today I have the honor of interviewing Adam Torres. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, Daniel. Happy to be here, man. Let's get it done.
Great. So can you share a little bit about yourself, your background, with the audience?
Absolutely. First off, I love coming on shows and I love guesting. And what my main purpose here today is I want to inspire other people to share and tell their stories. I started my career in finance, and let's say I was not one of the people that understood why you should start podcasts, why you should write books, why you should do all these things, why it's important to share your story and what you have to offer to the world. I didn't really understand that. I was definitely a behind the desk financial guy. I was in that business for almost 14 years. And prior to moving into media, which I've been doing for the last 9 years or so, I host 8 different shows on the Mission Matters series of shows. And I've done over 6,000 interviews now and come a long way, Daniel. So it's been quite a ride.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's really impressive. So can you share what inspired you to create Mission Matters? Like, where did that come from? Like, how did you get from finance behind the computer and behind the desk to really putting yourself out there, like full steam ahead?
Yeah. I'll say this, it wasn't some master plan that I had. It was definitely God's plan. This all started very simply. I released a book, and I released that book, let's say, begrudgingly. I didn't even want to write the book. My mentor at the time is, you got to write a book. You got to get that out there. That's how you brand yourself. That's how you market. You have a business. You want to market it. Do a book. And I'm like, but who cares? Like, why am I going to spend time on a book? So I listened to my mentor, and as I started getting out there and promoting the book, and I actually just handed them out. I wasn't really interested in selling books. I thought, who cares about that? It's a small product. And so I just gave them out, and I gave away literally thousands of books, and I brought in new assets, which is what I cared about at that time as a financial advisor. And things started to grow. People started to ask me to collaborate and to do some other things. And before you know it, we launched an anthology book series, which is our best-selling Mission Matters anthology book series. And we publish business leaders, entrepreneurs, executives. We published over 400 authors now. And really that all started from, that initial book. And then things grew from there. We started, when the podcast launched, things started to really get interesting. And that is where we really started to find our niche and our groove in the market. And that's when I think we became a business. In the beginning, it was just, publishing, and that was just for fun and to do some marketing. And I still had my firm and other things. But once we got into the podcasting space, things changed. We reached bigger audiences, and we saw the real potential of building a media company, a substantial media company over time. So that's kind of the transition period there. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't my plan. It wasn't some big thing where I thought I was supposed to be in media or all these other things. It wasn't even like that. It was really just God putting a lot of amazing people in my life, executing on my word and what I said I would do, and trying to be of service, like by doing interviews and by helping others and by publishing others. And, things grew from there.
That's really impressive that you've interviewed 6,000 people so far. A lot of people who start things, whether it's running a book or a podcast, they start and they drop off, a few months or a year later. What keeps you passionate and motivated to keep sharing, other people's stories?
I'm one of those people that drop off too. I'll throw that out there. I'm not no more special than anyone else when it comes to that. I wake up some days and I'm like, ugh. So I'll say that what I've done that's maybe a little bit different is I create systems. So I make sure that there's a system in place so that when that action that I'm really passionate about I don't feel like doing it, I still do it because the system's in place. For example, when I wake up in the morning, my calendar's already full of interviews. Like, I don't have to think about that. There's no thought about what I'm going to do today. I already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do some interviews. And so that keeps your production going. And then over time, what happens 9 years later, things compound and things change and things grow. But really, it just started from that simple system of making sure that my calendar was booked with interviews. That's where it all started. So if you want to do a podcast, then you just have to kind of set the goal and think about like how many interviews you want to do, how many per month, if you make sure your calendar's booked, if you have some level of automation, whether it's like a Calendly link or something else like that. And then, things can happen and compound for you over time. And then before you know it, you wake up 9 years later and you're like, whoa, I got all these interviews. If I was to think that I was going to have that many or I was going to do that type of content like in the beginning, if that would have been the plan, that would have been absolutely overwhelming and impossible to me. I'm saying to me, like in my own head, there's no way I would even think of that. But now it was just kind of breaking down how many I want to do this week, how many in a day. And over time that grew.
So what does the phrase mission matters mean to you personally?
So the brand and the company. So we amplify stories. And what I think is that somebody's mission or somebody's purpose, so you can use those kind of interchangeably sometimes, but somebody's mission is that's what keeps them going. That's what keeps them going when things get tough. That's what keeps them in the game. That's what keeps them focused, like their mission. And because of that, it's the center of the company. It's really the heart of the company and all the products and everything else that we create as well. So our aim and our goal is to amplify the stories of others and to help them execute their mission. And many times we find that can be done through sharing stories, through sharing content.
Wow, that's really amazing. What decisions do you make on like what stories to share? Since, I'm sure there's, what I mean? What angles and topics to talk about or what people to bring on the show?
Yeah. I'll say this, Daniel, in the beginning, the early days, if you had a pulse, you could get on the show. If you're breathing, let me see, could you fog a mirror? You're on the show. That's how it was the early days. We didn't have a brand. We didn't have a website. We didn't have social media. We didn't have anything built out at that time. So in the early days, you kind of take what you can get. And then over time, it scales up and there's more demand. And as you have more demand, you can be a little bit more selective. Now, at this point, I'm not involved in the day-to-day scheduling. So we're selling different series and there's just a bunch of different angles and different shows that either the producers or there's a whole ecosystem of PR agents and otherwise that all have, let's just say, their vested interest in getting their clients booked on the shows. And then there's also conference organizers. So we do quite a bit of covering like big conferences and events for companies. So our broadcasting side of thing is pretty substantial and we do that and that's a big part of our business as well. So helping to amplify, events and stories and conferences that are coming up. So at this point, there's a whole, ecosystem around it. But if somebody's listening to this and if they're wondering who they should bring on the show, I'll just throw it out there this way. We're not an elitist show. I interview, yes, big CEOs, but I also interview solopreneurs. Like I want to make sure that we have a good variety of stories and interviews that we're bringing to our audience because, again, we're just not an elitist organization. I'll throw it out there that way.
That's really interesting. So what lessons have you learned from interviewing like thousands of people? Like after like going through all those people, have you ever took a moment to look back and reflect and say, what are the biggest lessons you learned from all that?
I think people would definitely want to be recognized. They want to be recognized for their work. They want to be seen. They want to feel like they have some type of thing to offer into the marketplace or into the world. I feel like these are some of the big themes that come up. And you could just tell in interviews, like, it doesn't matter the profession, doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter everybody wants to add value in some way. That's one of the things I've noticed, even if they're not using those words, by the way. They don't have to be using those words, but that's the end output of their actions. And that's what keeps people, in my opinion, going far past what it takes to when, you first start either a business or you have an idea and you're excited and everything's going and everything's new. What happens when it's not new anymore? What happens when you're running out of money or it's getting hard or you're like, there's a lot of things that can happen. Like what keeps you going there? So that's the part that I think is interesting to get out of these interviews as well.
Now that you're a successful podcaster, what do you think are some of like the key ingredients that make a podcast truly impactful versus something that's really bland that nobody cares about?
I think that it doesn't matter. What one person thinks is bland, somebody else may think is great. So I think that some people think my show is bland. They're like, it's not true crime. It's not one of those cool mystery shows or like this or that. So it's business content. So you could argue my show's bland. I don't know. I guess that's not a good way to get people to go check it out.
But it is
But
impactful. Like you're
yeah,
reaching out, you know.
for sure, but to some, and maybe because we enjoy that type of content, but to others, they may not. So the reason I'm bringing that up, by the way, is because I don't believe that someone should be judging their own work. And I'll tell you a quick story. So when I was really early on, I was going to a buddy of mine. He's an old school Hollywood guy. He wrote for things like for a bunch of old TV shows. Like he was the old school Hollywood guy, like NYPD Blue and all these other things. So he's an old timer, I like to call him. He doesn't like it, but I like to call him it. And he says, and I tell him, I'm kind of in my head about like this is when I was first starting out, and I'm like, is this good or is it any good? And he's Adam. Let me tell you something. And at this point, I'm probably like a couple hundred interviews in or something like that, whatever. Are you better this week than you were last week? And I'm like, yeah. He said, what about last month? Yeah. He said, in a year, do you think you're going to be better than you are now? Yeah. He said, in 2 years, in 5 years, do you think you're going to be better? I'm like, yeah. He says, so why is like Adam today judging the future Adam's like potential? Like, just keep working on your craft, keep putting out content, keep doing work that you're proud of, and just keep on doing that, and you're going to get better. It doesn't matter where you're at. It matters. I mean, you don't have the right to judge that. The audience will judge that long term, but you don't have the right. You need to make sure that you're entertained and that you're having fun and that you're enjoying the work, because if not, you're going to quit, period. So that's what I would tell other people, is to not get in their head about, is their episodes good? Or are they not good? I tell people, don't even listen to them. I never listen to my own episodes, and I don't want to listen to my own episodes. I'm like, why would I do that? There's no way, no how. If somebody wants to sit there and listen to their own episodes, good for them. But I would rather be recording more episodes than listening to ones I already did, because I know that I'm learning kind of like real time is my style of learning. And that's not for everyone, by the way. Some people do need to listen to them because they learn differently than me. So it's okay. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying, for me, I'd rather record some new ones and versus like kind of looking at the past work. I just don't get as much out of it. So I would just say people should not be judging their own work. Go record some more episodes, because the only way you're going to get better is to keep on playing the game.
Thank you so much for sharing that. How was like the podcasting on your identity and your life? Because I'm sure that after interviewing thousands of people, you probably learned a lot of life lessons and stuff, but you probably think a little bit differently now.
Yeah, that's for certain. And I see it come up all the time. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I interviewed somebody, and they were talking about the World Bank's Mission 300. And it was basically this initiative, and I might be paraphrasing, I might not have it exact, but it was basically to bring, 300 million people in Africa electricity, to bring them electricity. And I had this conversation about what that looks like. And then I was kind of juxtaposing what the gentleman was telling me with the United States, when we went from being like farmers to going further into industrialization with electricity and things like that. So if you think about it, like all the productivity that was unleashed and like unlocked, like we went from candles, and now we could work at night. We could have a night shift. We weren't in the dark. Like, that completely changed the pace and of this country and innovation around the world. So for us to consider, and it's for some of us, if you haven't traveled or you don't know these areas or this information, think about it this way. There's still people, in Africa and other parts of the world that have to rush home from the field so that they could cook before they're in pitch dark. That's a thing. That's a thing. And so their entire night, it's done once the sun's done. Whereas we get to turn on light switches and go about our day and complain about whether or not, we want to get some more sleep tonight or not. So think about it. So when you put that into perspective, like what's going to happen with human potential in that particular continent, when hundreds of millions of people now are going to have electricity and are going to be able to now study, and education, this changes things. They get to study longer. They get to do a lot of other things there, and it's affordable. Like, this changes the whole complexion of what that looks like in a generation, like literally immediately for sure. But what about 20, 30 years down the line, all that human potential that's going to be unlocked? It's just amazing. So when you ask me the question, like, how has it shaped me? It gives me a different perspective on what's possible in humanity is what it does.
Like you mentioned on your website, you're like one of the top 2% of podcasters out there with everything that you've done. What do you think what advice could you give to people maybe starting a podcast on what they can do to have a successful podcast? Are there any like tips you give to people, the podcast newbies out there that are just starting out? Do this, not do that, or
be consistent with when you release your episode. If you say you're going to release an episode every Tuesday, then you release an episode every Tuesday. Rain, shine, whatever, doesn't matter. That's the first thing I say is just be consistent with your release date. That'd be number one. Number two, especially in the beginning, I wouldn't get too caught up with who your guests are. Like I would more so be working on yourself as a host, because ultimately people are going to listen to you because of you as a host and what you're talking about. It's not going to be the guest. You can have a huge guest on your show, and if nobody knows, if you don't have any audience that's used to listening to you, maybe you have one episode that has a lot of downloads and then the next one doesn't. It doesn't mean any of those people that listen to that episode subscribed to your podcast. Maybe they just want to listen to that episode. So they don't know you as a host. So I wouldn't get in your head about who's on the show and all these things. I would start thinking of it more like a sport and thinking about it like you're playing basketball or whatever it is. Like you're shooting a layup every time, shooting a layup, shooting a free throw. Sometimes you're going to miss. It's okay. Sometimes you're going to miss. But over time, your skill is going to get better to where you're going to hit and make more shots. And I would say that would be in the course of creating an actually good episode by your own standards, by the way. But so that's the way I would look at it. Start looking at a sport. You're playing a full contact sport, really, is what you're doing. And you got to be in the game releasing episodes, because that's the only way to participate. Like sitting around thinking about doing a podcast episode is not the same thing as putting out an episode. You can up your technology, you can do a bunch of other things, but at the end of the day, only thing that matters is, did you release an episode? That's it.
now that you've done like thousands of podcasts, has any like of them really stood out to be really memorable or life-changing?
I had one with, so I don't know if you know Mrs. Fields, like the cookies.
Yeah.
So I had Mr. Fields on the show, and what was interesting to me is he says this thing where I ask him like, "Oh, what's your advice for like new entrepreneurs or this or that?" And one thing is he cracks me up is he says something along the line of, you have to be in it you have to understand pain, because you're going to be in a lot of pain. He just kind of gave this pretty dark but blunt but reality check answer of why being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. And I'm like, man, you're the cookie guy. You're supposed to be like, and he corrected me, and he didn't correct me, but he basically gave me an education on that company. That wasn't really a cookie company. That might have been their end product, but that was actually one of the first tech companies ever. So they had,
Really, I never heard of that before.
And the people that bought them bought them for their technology. And I'll give you what the technology was back then, which right now would seem simple, but you got to think about how long ago this was. There was no internet. There was no nothing online. So what they really were, they were really just in time delivery before that was even a term. And they were doing it, who knows with what technology, microchips or whatever. But so picture this, and I could be off of my numbers, but let's say there were 1,000 Mrs. Fields cookies at the height, whatever. So let's say there's 1,000. At any given point in that network of 1,000 stores, there was never a cookie on the shelf for more than, it was either 5 or 10 minutes. So that's why whenever you go by, you could always smell the cookies. That was the secret. And that experience was across the entire network. So you would never find a cookie that was more than 5 or 10 minutes old on any of them. And so that technology on the back end, that's kind of like your first ever just in time. It was a tech company. It wasn't a cookie company.
Wow, I never knew that. I had no idea. That's really interesting.
I didn't either until I talked to Mr. Fields.
That's really cool. Now that podcasting's been around for some time and it's been evolving a lot, where do you see podcasting go in the next 5 years? Like, how do you see it change or evolve?
Tremendous amount of growth. Like we're just podcasting is just starting. Like we're in like year one, basically. I know it's been around over 20 years, but the way I like to explain it is there's over 150 million YouTube channels, which I'm a fan of YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, all that stuff. Like we do well on YouTube, lots of views, all good. But there's less than 4 million podcasts out there. So when you think about that, and then if you think about the amount of episodes that are actually being released every week, so I roughly, and give or take the week, there's, 200 to 300, let's say 200,000 episodes being released every week. That's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And when you think about like the shows and the potential for growth, like some things like, and there's some business reasons on the back end why it continues to grow and it's going to continue to grow. And one of them is that and now the ability to monetize a smaller show. That didn't used to exist. So things like ad attribution, where you can, sell some ads on one particular episode, and then that ad can be taken off and another ad can be sold and placed on that same episode. That never existed. Dynamic advertising, all these things that are coming out for podcasting that reward the small creators, they didn't exist. Now they do. So the more people understand this and the more small creators or even international creators that come to this space, we're going to have, we're at less than 4 million is going to be 5 million, then 10 million, then 20 million. There'll be 100 million podcasts one day. And whether that's in 5 years, I don't think, but whether that's in 10, 20 years, I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter in terms of amount of time, because what's going to happen is if you knew that there's going to be 100 million podcasts right in the future and there's only 4 million right now, it's the same thing as YouTube. If you knew YouTube was going to have 150 million like channels one day, do you think that I would have been creating YouTube content when there was a couple million? Heck yeah. I didn't know. I thought it was a silly little video platform. I didn't understand it when I was younger and when it first it first came on my radar, and there weren't that many. But if I did know, could you imagine that organic traffic? Could you imagine like putting out a video a week, like where you'd be at? Like insane what that catalog would be.
Wow, that's really interesting. So when you think about podcasting, how does it also, do you kind of combine your book writing with the podcasting, or do you keep them like as totally two separate like businesses?
No, for us, it's all under Mission Matters. Many of the people that we feature in our books, for example, in our Mission Matters series of books, we'll bring them on the show, and that's even part of their marketing and promotion package for those books. So we'll definitely do that. And then on the book side as well, like we publish individual books for clients as well. So not just Mission Matters books. So those individuals we're bringing on the show for promo as well. So I like to think of it as it's our ecosystem of helping individuals get their stories out there and to be heard.
You're not just a successful podcaster, but also author as well. I mean, what do you think some of the biggest challenges have people creating a successful book? Is it the actual writing of the book, or is it like the publishing, the editing, or not even getting started?
I think when it comes to the book side of things, somebody needs to have a real reason why they want to complete the book. Like some people start them, but if you don't have a reason why you want to complete it, and some of the reasons, not saying this has to be yours or anybody's, but like some of the reasons, is it for legacy? Is it you just want to tell your story? You want to teach your kids some lessons or your grandkids or something left behind? It could be legacy. It could be for biz dev. It could be for business. Like you want people to know your story and you want to have that as a marketing piece that you can use to grow your business and to hand out and then it could also be a actual profit center for you. So that might be something where you actually want to get out there and sell, and maybe you are a public speaker or something else like that, and you want to do that, and more power to you. So you have to be kind of clear. And those are probably the top 3 reasons why I see people like publish books. But once you're really clear on that and you have correct expectations, then next thing you do is you just need to decide what type of resources you want to allocate towards it. Are you going to write it yourself? Are you going to hire a ghostwriter? Do you have editing capabilities? You're going to hire an editor, a graphic designer. Then it just becomes, the kind of taking an honest assessment of your resources and what you're willing to put towards actually completing that book. And then you just create a plan, like a plan around it. And so once that plan's created, then it's execution. So for the book side, there's every different thing I just described. I feel like there's no one size fits all. It's basically some people are usually missing one or the other of those things I just described. So maybe they don't have a clear goal. Maybe they kind of know, they kind of don't. That type of person's not usually going to finish a book. Maybe they don't have the resources to finish the book. That could be possible, right? It does cost money. And assuming a publisher doesn't pick you up. But even then, if a publisher picks you up, you're probably not getting a big check as a first-time author. So it's probably nominal money anyway. So it's usually those things, because the publishing side of it now is not as hard as it used to be. Like you can publish on Amazon, there's a lot of different ways you can publish. So that part's not as hard as it once was. So now I think it's just more so like why somebody has to have a clear defined reason on why they want to write the book in the first place.
Why do you think personal branding is so important, more than ever now?
Your personal brand is going to be the one thing that you have until your dying day. And even it's actually going to outlive you, because when people Google you in the future, your digital footprint is still going to exist. So I should say you're going to have that. It's going to be out there far past when we're here. If people are still Googling you or looking up your work or any connection to you in businesses or otherwise. So if you don't control and create the brand that you're proud of and that represents what you care about, then really what'll happen is the course of your life, it'll be created for you. Whether it's lack of digital presence, whether it's, little things that are cobbled together throughout the years, whether it's on social media or otherwise, but you'll create one form of a personal brand or otherwise. But the key here, though, is that I think it's the most undervalued asset that people have, and they don't even understand that they have it. So, for example, you might be let me give the example of many business owners and what they do, which it's not a bad thing. So let's say they build a big business and eventually they exit that business, right? Great. Now they're sitting on a pile of money. That's a wonderful problem to have, right? And now they may want to go out to start another business. They got another idea. They took a year off, 2 years off, whatever, and now they want to start another business. They're out there raising money again, or they're doing, they're on the road again trying to get the next business going. That being said, those that build their personal brand during that entire time period, they can gain a reputation of being, a business builder, and it may make it slightly easier to raise capital in the future. And that's even if they're changing industries, changing ideas, they're going from one idea to another one. Even career change, the corporate side of things is the exact same thing. People that are changing jobs, people that are changing industries. Like if you have a strong personal brand, that's going to do nothing but benefit you along the way.
So you have a program called the Personal Brand Accelerator. Can you maybe walk us through what is the Personal Brand Accelerator? What is it about? Who's it for?
Yeah. So our Personal Brand Accelerator is a framework. So it's an 8-week course, and there's a group component of the course. And then there's also the one-on-one sessions as well. And what we're doing is we're taking people, think of it as a master class of building a personal brand. So it's building your personal brand from A to Z, everything from your social media to your communications, your messaging, and it's all based on real life events. So the content is taught from a perspective of brands that we've built as a company and even our own brands internally. We're going through case studies and we're providing not just advice, but the tools for individuals to succeed in building the type of personal brand that's going to help them achieve their goals, which again, those goals could be more clients, it could be more business partners, it could be raising capital, it could be a lot of different things. But the aim and the goal of that course is to align a person's personal brand with their goals.
Do you have multiple business ventures? What habits or mindset shifts did you have to make in order to have, multiple platforms out there?
I don't. So I'm all mission matters. That's the way
I thought you had different companies.
Nope, Mission Matters. These are everything I'm talking about. These are different profit centers within Mission Matters.
Profit centers, but it's all within. Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, by design, that is a good question, Daniel. I'm just slightly making sure I'm clear. But it was by design. So the way that we're able to do this is specifically from my shoes is each profit center has its own executive that's in charge of that profit center. So for example, our podcast agency has its own executive. The book side of things has its own executive. Our PR, the same thing. Myself, I spend about 70% of my time in front of camera and about 30% of the time running the company as CEO. And what I'm doing most of the time when I'm running the company is meeting with those executives, and I'm creating strategy and doing the other things that you have to do. That's the way we're able to pull it off. And so that's by structure and by design. And that's why I'm able to do so many interviews, by the way. If I was trying to do interviews and try to do everything and run everything and make every decision, that couldn't work. It's impossible.
Can you maybe share with us maybe some of the challenges or mistakes you made in the past and you learned from that you can share with our audience that so they can learn from them as well?
So I wish I would have understood the power of the personal brand much earlier. I didn't know. Like I think about things like my contacts, my other individuals that I knew, even from my wealth management days. Like I didn't know the power of those networks. I didn't understand like why it was so important to connect. I didn't understand social media. I thought it was just for fun. So I didn't really know. If I could go back in time, I would have been building my personal brand way earlier because even though I was able to get traction, able to do a lot of things in my life, when I think about all of the things that I lost out on or that I left behind, whether they were contacts, connections, social media following, like all those things, like why wasn't I on Instagram on the early days? That was silly. Like it was number one on the app store for years and I still wasn't even on it and I didn't care. And I'd be like, what? What is this? Who cares? Same thing with Facebook. I'm like, who cares about Facebook? Who cares about all these things? I thought they were just silly little toys. Joke's on me. Joke's on me.
So imagine like how your business has grown. You're no longer just like a one-man show. You have a whole team. What has been your approach to building a successful and resilient team of people that you can rely on?
I think we kind of luck out in one thing, and that's definitely the company and the name and our overall mission to help others. So what happens is it's kind of infectious. Like we have content going out constantly every single day. I just think about when you're working on that and when everybody's aligned. I like to think of myself as when we're doing these interviews, when we're bringing people on the shows, like I'm trying to lead from the front in terms of making sure to create more noise, more opportunity for our team and to bring more obviously resources into the equation, whether it's again, interviews, it could be partnerships, a lot of different ways to look at that. But I think between these things and the company and really the concept of being aligned and us executing day in, day out with helping others amplify their stories and their mission, I think it's kind of a little bit of an infectious culture in that sense that we're aligned, even if we don't talk often for certain areas. When it's interesting when we do have our all hands on deck kind of meetings, people are all up to date and people are all excited and we're all heading in that same direction. So that's really been a blessing.
Uh, you're lucky in that regard. That things have worked out for you in such a good way. And it's also good because for others too, because I think you're all about helping people and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's for these days. We need more people like you out there trying to help like others, put themselves out there and be successful. So what has your been, what stays you to want to continue to grow as a person versus just, just staying the same?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the personal challenge of just I what my North Star, if you will, is I just want to continue to be a better and better host like every day. That's my number one thing that I focus on. I just want to make sure that I'm doing quality interviews. I want to get better in doing my interviews. And even now, like I'm only 6,000 interviews in, but I think about the greats, like the people that did this for 10, 20, 30 years. Think about your Johnny Carsons. Think about your David Lettermans. Think about your like Bob Hopes. Think about these entertainers like the legends that had these 30, 40, whatever. I don't know how long Bob Hope's career was, 70 years, whatever, like in careers. So for me, I'm only 9 years in. I'm a baby. I'm just starting. I'm like, I still got in my baby teeth. That's what I say. I don't, this is just beginning for me. So I'm just keeping the long perspective of that and understanding that. And when you do that, the pressure's kind of off. Because it's okay, I'm only in my first decade. If I'm not any good this year, maybe the second decade I'll be good. If I'm not good at the second decade, well, by the third decade, I got to be decent. So one way or another, you were going to make something happen. So that takes the pressure off, though. If you think about it, there's no pressure. Nothing I could do now behind a microphone is going to matter in 20 years, period.
So in your opinion, what do you think, like, what platforms and mediums do you think are underutilized for storytelling, for sharing, people's stories and everything?
You already know the answer to that. Podcasting. Come on, man. You already know that one. It has to be. It has to be.
That's the most underused.
Think about it. Just look at the numbers. There's less than 4 million. That's nothing. That's absolutely not in the entire world. That's nothing. Like, think about how many web blogs are out there. Think about just YouTube. Pick on that one a little longer. 150 million plus. Are you kidding me? Like, podcasting, 100%. Like, it's so underutilized, but it won't always be, by the way. That's just so that your audience knows that they have inside information on the way on what happens next right now by listening to your show.
So what do you think is like the strategy to make sure that your content has a lasting impact versus something that people are scrolling, they see for 2 seconds and forget, after the scrolling?
What you're asking when you're talking about scrolling, they're going to keep forgetting. That is, because that's the nature of that. So it's just perspective and understanding what the different platforms are meant for. So I'll kind of juxtapose Instagram versus a podcast. Instagram and an Instagram reel, the point of that is to get somebody to hopefully get interested in listening to a full episode of yours. Now, they may have to watch a couple of reels or a couple of things before they care enough to actually go to your show and listen to a full episode. And they may have to listen to a couple episodes before they care enough to actually hit the subscribe button because they think that this is something that they want in their life regularly. So when you think about that, it's just levels of expectation. So on your reel side of things, it's meant to scroll. You're only going to get a little bit of attention, and it's okay. It's meant to do that. But on a podcast, when and if you earn the trust of a listener to actually, that's going to give you time and listen to an episode of yours. Now you got half an hour, 30 minutes to an hour maybe of their life that they're listening to you, which is insane. That's a ton of time. That's a lot invested in listening to your content. So the way I look at it is you just got to have proper expectations on which is which.
What is your long-term vision for Mission Matters?
I want us to be a trusted source for content. That's what I want. I want people to be able to understand that brand, that name. They go to that website, they listen to our show. And there's many amazing shows on there. As a company, we've launched over 250 shows for other individuals. We've talked a lot on this interview about what my shows and my interviews, but I'm most proud of the shows that we've launched for other individuals because that's really us fulfilling our mission to amplify the voices and stories of others. Because ultimately, my aim and goal is not just for me to continue to podcast. That's the thing. I want other people to start in the game. I want them to go out there and to create their own content because that's how we fulfill our mission.
So if somebody had a question for our conversation today or they're interested in working with you, what are the best ways they can reach out to you?
Super, super simple. Ask Adam Torres on Instagram. Just shoot me a message. If you got a show idea, a book idea, or any questions, anything, just shoot me a message on Instagram. Super simple. Ask Adam Torres.
Adam, I really appreciate talking with you, but we need to wrap up our show for today because we're running out of time. Do you have any final words you'd like to share with our audience before we end the conversation?
Hey, if you're out there and you are sitting on the sideline and you think you can't do it, you can. Just get in the water, start recording. It's okay. It's fine. There's nothing you can do behind that mic you can always take content down if you don't like what you create that much. It's okay. And I've done it myself. So the early shows, we don't have that content up anymore because it was that bad. But guess what? I got better. You'll get better. It's okay. Get out there, start recording, start a podcast if you haven't started one. I already gave you the numbers today. You're going to be kicking yourself if you don't start a podcast in 10 years when you see the growth and what continues to happen. And it's going to be one more opportunity that you're like, oh, I wish I would have did that. I wish I would have did that. Don't let podcasting be that. Go out there and get your show started.
Let's just be clear. Part of what you do is you help people launch their podcast or their book. So if somebody was sitting on the fence about doing it, or they're confused, they don't know how, they can always come to you and you can provide the service of helping them launch their book or the podcast.
I appreciate that, Daniel, and that is part of our business, but that's not even what I'm saying. Go launch it yourself. Go hire another company. I don't care. Do what you got to do, but
I'm talking to you now. So.
I know, I understand, but I'm just saying, like, that's my goal in saying what I just said is not more clients. My goal in saying what I said is that I understand that this people are going to create generational wealth from creating podcasts. And the people that are listening to my interview, I'm hoping that I get through to them enough to, hey, they go on YouTube, launch your own podcast, do whatever you want to do, hire us, hire another company, doesn't matter, but get it done. And you will not regret that. It's going to be one of the best things you've ever done.
I appreciate you being so humble on your offerings. Not that many people are like that. And that's why I like you. You know, you're a really nice guy. You really care about helping people. So brand name, Mission Matters really is a good fit for you. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish we had more time to talk about things, but you know, the show is only so long, so we have to put it to wraps for now. But I want to thank you so much for sharing about your experiences and your knowledge with our audience today.
Oh man, appreciate you, Daniel. Keep up the great work and look forward to hearing more episodes come out. So appreciate you.